Hey, what's up guys? In today's video, I'll be talking about the newest mage, Lugrant. Many of you may be wondering, is she worth summoning? And the short answer is absolutely. From my first impressions, she doesn't break the game in any way, but she does make mostly everything much easier. To give you an idea of what she's useful for, let's quickly run through her profile and skills. Lugrant is a leaf mage whose toolkit has attributes of both healing, damaging, and buffing. Lugrant's first skill is a stun that does decent damage, dealing even more damage against water enemies and enemies with status immunity. It's not affected by cooldown reduction whatsoever, but does have a second effect that heals your party for 20 seconds. If your entire party is comprised of mages, then the skill fully crits and the healing effects are increased. Lugrant's next skill increases the entire team's accuracy and additional damage done to normal monsters. This amount increases as Lugrant's level and cooldown reduction increases, and is multiplied by the number of mages on your team. When your entire team is comprised of mages, the effect is doubled. To me, this skill is nothing special. The accuracy might be useful if you're lacking it, and the monster damage is useful for slasher mode, but that's the only real perk of the skill in my opinion. Nothing to write home about. Lugrant's third skill increases the team's health and defense. The amount increases with Lugrant's level and cooldown reduction, and is multiplied by the number of mages on the team. Like her previous skills, if you're running an all-mage team, the effect is doubled. Again, the percent increase you get isn't that crazy, but it is helpful if you're having trouble keeping your team alive. Now, Lugrant's fourth and fifth skills are more useful in my opinion. Her fourth skill increases the team's active skill damage, reduces the damage that your mages take from enemies, in addition to increasing the final damage your team inflicts to them. Furthermore, this skill reduces the team's damage taken by water enemies, but only in raids. The strength of these buffs scale directly with Lugrant's level and cooldown reduction for the most part. This skill not only helps your entire team deal out more damage to bosses, but is essential for water raids to help reduce the damage your team takes. Lugrant's last skill increases the team's crit damage and boss damage. Again, this is very helpful as it'll increase your damage to bosses, which you'll pretty much encounter everywhere. The effect is doubled if you're running an all-mage party. So overall, what are Lugrant's pros and cons? As a new character in a gacha game, it should come to no surprise that she has many pros and very few cons. Her pros include the following. Her active skill does decent damage and team spread healing. She provides buffs to the team such as accuracy, normal monster damage, health, and defense. More importantly, she provides buffs like active skill damage, crit damage, and boss damage. She's great in all mage teams, which is useful against bosses with physical immunity, and she's essential in water raids. And overall very versatile and useful for many different team compositions and game modes. The only cons I could make up are that you may not use an all mage team all that frequently, so her bonuses aren't always in effect, and her burst damage isn't the greatest when compared to other characters, but still above average. In summary, there's not much to complain about her besides maybe her design change. Moving on to the different game modes, here's what I grade her rating for each game mode, at least from my initial thoughts. Because Lugrant does decent damage, healing, and buffing, she'll be useful for most boss battles, which is why areas like raids, adventure mode, abyss, and guild territory all have her as 5 stars. Now I rated her 4 stars for Dark Lord's Tower, only because those floors require very specific types of teams to beat them, and from my memory, I would say you can get by most of them without her, so she's not as essential there. For the last 2 categories, I rated her 2 stars in PvP simply because she's just not that good. For PvP, you want to be using characters with blocks. As for Slasher, I put her as 4 stars because she herself doesn't do much killing here, if at all, but her team buffs would help a lot to monster killers like Belphegor. And lastly, let's go over her gear. For Lugrant's weapon, I would suggest either the Manuscript of Abundance or Excalibur. If neither of these are available, then I would just give her your next highest attack weapon. If that weapon has some cooldown reduction on it, then that's a bonus. For her armors, I'd recommend getting a combination of damage reduction and attack percent, so something like 3 Slasher or Demon with 2 Achilles, or 3 Achilles combined with 2 Abyss or Demon to maximize attack percent. This really just depends on what armors or other damage dealers are using. Even the brand new Executioner armor would work well on her, but for new players, I wouldn't worry about this as it's currently expensive to get. Feel free to modify this setup depending on whether the situation calls for more penetration or damage. In summary, Lugrant is a must-have for today's meta, and especially if you don't have Ryu from the previous Danmachi collaboration, then you will definitely benefit from getting Lugrant. She's great for most situations, especially stun lock teams, all mage teams, and pretty much any situation where you may need more damage, more heals, and more buffs. She's becoming increasingly used in today's raid meta, so if that isn't enough of a reason for you, I don't know what is. That concludes my initial impressions of her. If you guys found this video informative, please support me by giving it a like and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.